You are listening to Survival Stories with Jacqui. Welcome, survival warriors. If you are a victim or survivor of trauma, then you're in the right place. In this show, we'll explore the extreme strength displayed by victims of trauma as they journey through life to the survival pinnacle. My name is Jacqui, and I am so grateful to be here today to share my survival with you. Here is this survival story. Let's dig deep. Hello, survival warriors, and welcome to this week's episode. I'd like to introduce you to a very, very special friend of mine, Marlisse Hardoman, who is quite phenomenal in the things that she's faced in her life and come out the other side still smiling, still, as she puts it, dancing in the sun. So, without saying more, prepare to be amazed at the strength of the woman. Here we have it, Marlisse. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me, and I'm excited to be here. I guess I should start at the beginning, and just share with you what I've gone through. It started. My mother had ran away from my father. Why did I keep saying husband? My father, because he was domestically violent. Just to her, he wasn't beating us, but wasn't sure that he would not abuse us eventually. So we ran about 2 hours away from our home, and we went to live with her friend and her family, which composed of her husband and her children. And we moved from what I want to call a middle class family, where we weren't struggling for much, to somewhere where I would say we were definitely in poverty. And that is very impactful in itself. But at least we were safe, and my mother was safe. So she tried to get a job. And because for many years she had been a housewife, it was not easy. So we continued to live with them, and we lived with them until when I turned 6.
Marlisse, could I ask
We had
you, do you have
Yes,
brothers and sisters?
yes, I do. I have a older sister, and but she lived with, and we just recently had this conversation, where she finally opened up, and she was not sexually assaulted, but I look like my mother, and who is fairly light complected, and she looked like my father, who was very dark. So she was not targeted for sexual assault, but she was targeted because she was called names, and she was picked on for being so dark.
Oh my
So
goodness.
it was a definite different environment. And I found myself literally very recently, at, like, when I say recently, I mean Monday,
Mm-hmm.
texting her and apologizing to her, because I spend a lot of time dealing with my abuse and the things that I had went through, that I never realized how traumatic it must have been to grow up hearing all the time, being criticized because you're dark.
Mm.
So, and I apologized to her because I finally got it, and said, wow, that was just as harmful to her as all the things that I went through at a
Absolutely.
whole nother level.
Mm.
Um, so when, what their Black Lives Matters is fighting for now, I really see, I understand it, not from just the position of being Black, but understanding the harm that it causes to people who are dark, and how that affects them.
Mm.
So, and you that's applied. I tell her, somehow I'm going to make up for my ignorance, not knowing.
Well, I can understand that sentiment, but at the same time, you didn't do anything to her. You just assumed, which you were a child, so
Right.
I'm sure she understands.
And I really believe she does, but there's still some place in me that says, wow. So I'm trying to give her the space to share with me the things that she has felt, because she needs to heal. And she's older than I am, and she's never ever talked about her feelings about her cut skin complexion with anyone. So I just recognize that she needs space for me to allow her to open up and heal.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. I agree with you, and it's very topical at the moment, isn't it? Because
right.
I know that as a dark Black woman in my life, I've always been very proud of my darkness. But then again, growing up, my mom's friends always used to call me Black Beauty. So I've never seen it any other way. But you see, what I'm trying to show you is how easy it is to just take things for granted. If you don't, when you're a child, you don't think about it. But Black Lives Matter is a really, really powerful movement. I agree with you.
So, it just reshapes, I guess, my thought pattern. But for me, when I turned 6, um, I was I was having a birthday party, which was big because again, we were poor. I can remember getting my first real outfit that was not hand-me-down from my sister, but actually mine, being the first person to wear it. But there was one rule in our home, and that was that you had to be clean. So we took a bath, when we went to bed, and when we got up in the morning, we were expected to wash and brush teeth. So it was my turn to go and get a bath. So I went upstairs after the party was over, just as happy as a lark, to take my bath. And I went in the bath. I started my bath. I got undressed, but I could hear like the door handle moving. So I thought, okay, I didn't put the latch on the door. So I went to latch the door, and when I did, the husband of the woman that we were staying with pushed his way my into the bathroom, and I hit my head on the toilet and fell onto the ground, like right underneath the toilet. And I can remember the smell of urine.
Oh my!
That urine to this very day.
Oh my goodness!
And while I was laying there, naked, he sexually assaulted me.
You were 6 years old.
And I'm 6 years old. And the sexual assault continued literally monthly, sometimes weekly, from age of 6 to 8. And in the beginning, I would hear arguments between him and his wife. So I knew that she knew something. But when those arguments stopped in about 6 months, I'm going to guess, her anger went from him to me. And she did little cruel things to me that today I've learned are really child abuse. Um, like if I came in, I was the last one in for lunch. She would not allow me to eat off of my own plate. I would have to wait until everyone else ate. And then I would be left to eat what was left on their plate. She wouldn't feed me a new lunch. She would tell me, now you can eat the scraps since you can't come to lunch on time.
Could I ask you a question? Do you
Yes,
think she knew?
I think she definitely knew. I think she chose not to leave him or not to kick him out. So she turned her anger on the next closest person in the whole situation, which was me. Because she would make me, if my room wasn't clean, and I shared a room with my sister. My sister could go out and play, but I was forced to not only clean the room, but to sit in what I want to call a hind catcher position behind the couch for hours. Tears would run down my face. She would stuff rags in my mouth.
Oh, no. No.
I can remember tasting vomit because, when you someone's crying and you cover their mouth, they're crying harder, and that's natural. And I would literally end up swallowing my own vomit. And I didn't tell my mom because I was scared that she had already been through enough, and that I risked that invisible someone coming in and taking me away from the only family that I did have, or even worse, being sent back to my dad, where I knew what she was going through and had went through, and then thinking that's what would happen to me. So I kept my mouth shut. Yes.
That's like being 6 and being forced to be an adult and reason through it, what's happening and how best to protect your mother and your sister at such a young age. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
And it was just that. And it continued until I was about 8 years old. And I remember my mom got her first real job where she had enough money to sustain us. And we moved away. And when we moved away, I learned that I think my mother knew, even though I didn't tell her, because we cut all contact with them. We didn't do Thanksgiving or Christmas or 4th of July, birthdays, nothing. It was like they fell off the face of the planet.
I'm going to stop you there for a minute, Marlisse. I just want us to think about what's been happening here for a second.
My name is Marlisse Hardoman. I am a speaker for Transformation Speaks. If you need a speaker who speaks about women's struggle with sexual assault, domestic violence, child abuse, my fees are nominal, if not at all. I'd be willing to do I will be willing to do Zooms. I will come and talk in your group, whatever you need me to do. If you need someone to help you transform your life and you want a life coach who is free of charge, who has been there, done that, I'm willing to come and be a part of your life for as long as you need me or will have me.
And here we are again. We've just heard from Marlisse a horrific, harrowing story of what happened to her when she was 6 years old. And a revenge which was wreaked on her by a grown woman, which is ridiculous to me, and I'm sure ridiculous to you all. But that's not the end of the story. There's more to come. So I'm handing you back to Marlisse.
Thank you. So when I got through with angels, literally teachers who kind of took me under their wings, and I never shared with them, but at least kept me semi-stable. But when I turned 16, again, I went to babysit for another one of my mother's friends, and it was her birthday, and they were going out. So my mother convinced me that it would be a nice thing to do. So in a way to get some extra money. So when I went, everything started out fine. They went out, but when they came back, she came back. She was singing, and I knew she was drunk. She went upstairs to her room, but her husband came down and sat in the television room, and I kind of knew something was wrong because the hairs on the back of my head began to stand up. And you know, when you just feel uneasy, you know something's not right. So I lay there, and I was completely dressed. I wasn't wearing shorts or a half top or my underwear and bra. I had a full t-shirt on. I had a pair of shorts on that came to the middle of my calf, so everything was hidden. But I knew something was wrong. So I was laying on the couch, and he was sitting in the recliner, and I turned my back to him, not to speak to him, not to say anything to him. And eventually I did drift off to sleep. But when I woke up feeling a breeze running across my chest and really not understanding it. So when I began to open my eyes, I realized that I had no clothes on, and I couldn't get up to get them because I could see my clothes sitting on the floor next to me, but I couldn't get them. And I realized slowly as I woke up that there was something straddled across me. I could feel his legs against my hips. And the more I woke up, the first thing I can remember is him taking money out of his pocket and ramming it in my mouth.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Telling me not to say a word, or this will be the last thing I ever tasted. And as I lay there with tears running down my eyes again, I had developed a neurological disorder from all of the abuse when I was 6 to 8. And that neurological disorder kicked back in. I hadn't felt it since we moved away. But what it does is it numbs my entire, anytime I get overly stressed, it would numb my entire body. And I literally would lose physical control. And I know it was psychological, but I think that was my body's way of trying to protect me because I also couldn't feel anything. So when he was finished, he got up, went upstairs, and as my body came back to me, I could feel the pain. So it was not just a sexual assault, it was a very violent sexual assault.
From a very cruel.
Yes.
Oh my God. I can't even describe the words that are going through me right now.
Um, and when I had finally felt my whole body returning, I rolled. I couldn't get to my feet because it was that painful. I rolled off the couch, crawled on my hands and knees like a dog into their downstairs bathroom. I took the money out my mouth. I tried to, as best as I could, wipe myself down. I can remember taking the rag that had blood. It was blood soaked,
Oh
and
God.
stuffing it at the bottom of their bathroom trash can and trying to wrap paper around it so no one would know what had happened. And so I crawled back into the living room and I laid on the floor. I didn't get back on the couch. And as I laid there, tears strolled down my face. I cried, I moaned. And as I could feel like shame and anger and
Oh,
pain and all of those feelings just wash over me and flood me. I mean, I think it was truly the moment that I lost myself, because of, even though at 6 this had happened, I was able to um, keep it together to some degree, but at that point, at this point at 16, I truly lost all of me.
but then you have to remember, at 6 you were a child. At
Right,
16 you'd started to become a woman. So, and for it to be
right.
this, oh, I'm so sorry.
And when they woke up in the morning, I didn't eat. I just said, I'm ready to go home. And I didn't tell her because that 6-year-old girl said, shh, be quiet. It's all your fault. Don't, if you say anything, you're going to hurt your mom. And all, she began talking to me. She
Yeah.
became that, her ghost, for lack of better words, became my constant companion.
Hmm.
Uh, who who and the things she was telling me weren't things to build me up. They were things that were meant to destroy me. I went home. I can remember I started drinking. I started doing drugs. I hung out with the worst kind of kids. I put myself in every high risk scenario that you could think of. I can remember even I had friends that lived in the town next to us. It was about a 15-minute drive. I would go to their house and walk home in the middle of the night when anything could happen to me. So there was no sense of self-worth left in me. It was just like, I'm here. My mother is and still is very um, religious. And so I knew what it meant if I tried to kill myself. And so I tried to find other ways to have other people do what, like, I couldn't do, because I was like, well, I don't want to go to hell, so I'm not going to kill myself. But if someone else does it to me, then I'm not going there. So
My goodness.
yeah,
That's
so
that's
I literally tried. That's what I spent very much of my young adult life trying to do, trying to find some way for me to exit this world in a way that would not ensure I was going to go to hell.
my goodness. That's a lot for such a young person.
Yes. Um, and it caused us a strain on me that literally broke me. But again, I had a teacher who made it his point to make sure I made it through school, to make sure I did my homework, to make sure he made it his point. He said, "You're going to college. I don't care what else you do, you're going to college." And had it not been for the loving kindness that I received from him, and it wasn't sexual, it wasn't anything like that. It was just, I think he knew what had happened to me, even though I never shared it with him. And he was trying to do his best to keep me alive and moving forward. So I did make it to college, and I still drank, and I still smoked, and I still participated in high risk negative behavior.
Question.
Uh,
Did you think when you agreed to his mentorship, did you think you would get into college, or were you just doing it just to get him to stop talking?
To stop, that's it. To be like, yeah. Because his threat over me was, "I'll tell you, mom. I'll tell you."
It's always a
I
powerful
said,
one, isn't it?
yeah, so, even though everything that happened, there's still a part of me that's still a kid that said, I didn't want my mom to know, um, because I knew that she was doing the best that she could. And her best meant that I was kind of like an afterthought. So I didn't want life to be any harder for her than
Sure.
it had to be. So I just felt like I'm not trying to go to college. I'm trying to shut him out. But when I got to college, it was like, okay, I'm here. Uh, I'm here. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I really wasn't concerned about it. I was just like, oh, this is another place for me to drink and smoke and meet other people who were doing the same things I was doing. So, a new set of friends, and that's what I had. They were all doing the same thing that I was trying to self-destruct.
Yeah.
And there was one person in my life that I met that wasn't like that, who was gentle and kind, and he didn't smoke, and he didn't drink, and he didn't cuss. And it just amazed me and he didn't want anything from me. It wasn't like, I want to have sex with you. I want, you can give me something. It was more about what he could give to me. And I married him because I had never met anyone like that.
Stop there for a minute, please, Marlisse.
Okay.
Let's just think about this. So,
I have 5 wonderful children and a husband and a grandson. And they are the joy of my life. I've been married for 25 years. Wow. And my husband is, he was my white knight, and he has grown with me, and he has supported me. And probably without him, I would not have. There are times when I want to stop, and he says, "No, you need to keep going. This is your purpose." I have 4 wonderful boys. One, and they're all doing something productive with their life. So I love them. I have a special needs grandson who lives with me. Torian is like my gift. He's nonverbal. He can't walk. He can't feed himself, but he proves to me every day that yes, you can. Any day I feel like I can't, his mere presence says, oh yes, you can.
So we were at the point where Marlisse met her husband, who was kind, gentle, and wanted nothing from her, which is a good thing, because when you think about it, what happened to her started very young, and she'd been very much looking after others' needs for her whole life. But I'm going to stop talking because I'm sure you'd much rather hear from Marlisse, and here she is again.
So we're at the point, he would like even go to parties with me, and I would drink and I would smoke and I would be totally out of my mind. And he would make sure to say, don't touch her. And he would walk me back across campus and lock me in my room. And to make sure I didn't get out and no one got in. And so he was so, I mean, phenomenal. Just, just phenomenal. So after about 2 years, and now we're still dating, my academic coach came to me and said, you can't stay here forever. College is not meant to be somewhere that you just come and live. So you need to pick a major and you need to stick with it and finish it. And I really didn't know what I was going to do. I knew there were things I didn't like to do. And so the one thing that jumped in my mind, and I think I spoke it before I really thought about what it meant, was that I wanted to be a teacher, because at that point in my life, the only people who were my angels, who looked out for me and made sure that I was stable enough to live, to continue to grow. We're all teachers. So I said, I want to be a teacher, but I don't like little kids. Because I just don't. uh, and and the last teacher I had, which was a history teacher. So I said, I want to be a history teacher, because he reasoned with me, although he threatened me into doing everything. He was able to explain why his threats were in my best interest. And so I said, I want to be able to talk to whoever I teach. I don't want them just to do what I say or ignore me. So I said, I want to be a high school teacher. He said, well, I need you to first stop doing drugs, because you're going to be drug tested. And I know you're doing drugs. And I'm not going to tell you how you need to stop. I'm going to tell you where you can get some resources if you want them. But I'm just telling you, you'll never teach unless you stop doing drugs. So from that moment on, I made up my mind that no matter how crazy I wasn't going to do drugs anymore, because it would stop me from teaching. And so I just, with my husband's help, I began to at least not do the drugs. Not that I wasn't drinking alcohol. At least I wasn't doing the drugs. And I began to go through withdrawal and all of those. And of course, because I'm probably really crazier than I know. I decided that, I'm not getting help. I don't want to go to a therapist. I don't want to, because I had really tried to talk to a therapist once on campus, and it really didn't go well. I ended up cussing her out and storming out because she told me what I really was, which was crazy, and I needed help. And I didn't want to hear that. So with his help, I kicked drugs. And after I passed the teaching test, I actually, and it's a joke, I had a friend named Sarita, and she plays basketball, but she's not really a bright person. And I said, Sarita, I need you to go take your teaching test. So when she took it and she got her results back and she had passed, I was like, well, if Sarita passed, I know I can pass. And so that literally, I didn't study. I didn't do anything. I was like, I know that if she passed, I can do this.
Oh, bless.
And so I went and I took the test and I passed it. And so then I said, well, now it's time to kick alcohol because, I don't want that showing up in a drug test.
Absolutely.
And so with my husband's help again, but now he's my boyfriend, I kicked the alcohol and said, I'll just be a mean, hateful, spiteful person, but I won't drink and I won't smoke. Just as long as no one pushes me, I'll be good.
So would you say at that point it was like letting go of the crutches?
Yes.
Okay.
And I learned how to wear the mask.
Okay. Interesting.
I mean, I learned how to be what people wanted me to be in public and be who I really was at home and in private. So I was very mean, and I'm just honest. I was very at home. I was very mean. I was very angry. I was very explosive. But if you saw me in public, I was very nice. I was very, I said what I knew, all the answers that people wanted to hear. And I gave them that's what I began to give people. And only those people who could get close to me really realized that she wasn't that good of a person. I wasn't reliable and I wasn't dependable as a friend. I had a lot of issues and they were very apparent if you got past the mask. But I got the job. I was teaching, and I married Jeff to his maybe chagrin at that point because he came to me about 3 years after we were married and said, you're too much for me. I can't do this anymore. And I don't want to leave you, but you're crazy. So, and that was my trigger word. So after I blessed him out, he said, here's the deal. If you'll go to church with me, then I'll stay. Because in the African American community, we don't go to therapy. We go to church.
Okay.
So, at least in African American, we don't go to therapists. We think we're going to pray it away, read the Bible it away, whatever. But church is going to make us all better.
Did he know? I agree. Sorry, did he know about the abuse?
Actually, he was the one person who actually, because before we got married, I shared it the night he asked me to marry him. I shared everything with him,
Okay,
and
good.
uh, was like, "And you still want to marry me?" You know. So, so he was the one person in my life at that point that I just opened up and dared to expose him to everything, because I thoroughly, honestly expected him to walk away. So I wanted to give him that opportunity.
You were so used to being let down then, weren't you?
Right.
To me, that says somebody who was afraid to love too much or
Right.
afraid to be happy.
And at that point, even yet not knowing how to be happy,
Yeah, yeah, that's probably a better word.
because his love scared me. Even though I was in awe of it, it scared me, because I kept thinking, when's the other shoe going to drop? You
Mm.
really can't be this nice. So we did go to church, and going to church, I met my former pastor. He just retired, and he walked me through the 12-step program, which I wasn't doing drugs, but the program is more than that. It it allows you to meet yourself, and it opened up the floodgates of the pain.
Yes.
And he allowed me to dump all that stuff onto him and in his hands, and he kept my secrets. And being honest, I cussed him out many, oh my goodness, at times. I would email him and cuss him out. I mean, that's how bad it was. But he never turned his back on me. He read books that helped me to heal, like boundaries. Um, and he really just began to invest in me. For a matter of fact, people who didn't know him and I would say, "Oh, is that your daughter?" And he'd be like, "No," because I leaned so heavily on him, and he began to trust me to do things that I don't know that I would have trusted me to do.
Interesting.
Um, but it began to rebuild me.
And that's what's important right there.
And yeah, and I think he knew that I just needed someone to trust me and to help me. And I think he knew my husband had taken all he could take. But he and it's really funny, because he started to go gray, and he would tell people all the gray on his left side of his face belonged to me, because I was that horrible of a person. And he didn't say that. He would, because you know he would make little jokes about it, but they wouldn't be hurtful jokes, because I knew that they were true.
Yeah.
Um, and about a year or two after we had really started working and things had really started changing in my life, um, the daughter of the gentleman who sexually assaulted me when I was 16 called me, and she asked me if I would come to her dad's bedside and pray for him, because he was dying. And at first, I was like, no. For a matter of fact, I think I lost my mind and was like, I can think of the choice word that I used to express that I wasn't going. And it wasn't that I told her, but I got in a dialogue with my husband. I was like, no way, I'm not going. And after I talked to my pastor, I was like, I'm still not going. And it was several days later, I found myself at the hospital, walking into his room, feeling half crazy because there were voices in my head that were like, you can kill him. You could, get your revenge. This is the time. And it was like a battle of, no, you need to just go and pray going on in my head. When they say there's an angel and a devil sitting on your shoulder, that's real. That is real.
I tend to agree with you there. Yeah.
And they were sitting on my shoulder, battling it out. And I was stuck in the middle, feeling like I was losing my mind. So I went into the room and I went to his bed. And I was like, okay, you can do it, you can do it. And I went to pray. And as I opened my mouth, he grabbed my arm and I looked down. And this shell of a man was laying in the bed. When he had sexually assaulted me, he was bigger than me, he was stronger than me. And as I looked at the man laying in the bed now, it was a shell of that man.
Look what life does, huh?
Yes. And I could hear him over the tube that was in his mouth, and he said, I'm sorry.
Oh my God. Wow.
And I how when you kind of look at someone like, what'd you say? And he said it again. He was like, I'm sorry, with tears running down his face. And I remember thinking, and I'm really not sure, that I did pray. But I can remember running out of the room, tears running down my face. I jumped in the elevator. I just cried and I cried. And I was crying that whole time because, it was like something broke. And I was holding it in my hands, like my heart just finally just broke. Whatever was around my heart had finally it was cracking, melting. And I couldn't control the emotion that was coming out of me. I got into my car and I screamed and I hollered and I beat the car and I kicked and I yelled and tears flowed. And I can remember just sitting in the car for hours until I couldn't cry anymore, until no more tears could come. And when it was done, it was like I was in the car alone.
It was that necessary thing.
Yes. And for the first time, even though I had been going through this healing process, it was like I was alone. There was no one there. There was no pain. There was no hurt. There was no shame. It was like there was just me and the sun. I can remember the sun shining through the window onto me and onto my face, and I could just feel that sun. And it was like, I felt like, and it's crazy, like I was reborn. Like for the first time, there was no past, there was just there. And it was now. And there was peace and there was joy. And I call it, that was the moment I began that life of what I'm living now, where I was dancing in the sun, like, wow, I'm alive. I made it. I'm here. And I can remember the more distant that I drove from the hospital, the freer I felt. And it was like the shackles that had been on me since I was 6 years old had dropped off and they were gone. And I could breathe deep, and just enjoy life. I got home and I talked to my husband, and it was, I could love. It was like I saw him through different eyes for life.
Oh,
And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm happy. I'm just at peace. And I just lived in that moment. I began to listen to anything I could find, anything I could read that could help me grow in that space. Help me be the person that I really was meant to be. It was like I met myself. I could look at myself in the mirror, really look at me and like what I saw. And in that little 6-year-old girl that was in pain, and she was gone, and it was amazing. And so one day I was on Facebook. I met a woman who lived in Nevada, and we had a conversation, through message. So I'm not the greatest typer, so it wasn't long. And a couple of days later, I found in my email, she had sent me a logo called Transformation Speaks with a butterfly ascending out of the words transformation. And it was beautiful. And I sent her a message. I said, what am I doing with this? And she said, God told me to give it to you, and you'll understand it when it's time. Just don't throw it away. And so for about 3 years, it sat in my email. Never touched it, never looked at it, just because I didn't know what it was for. And one day I was cleaning out my email, and I came across it, and it was like this light turned on in my brain and said, I know exactly what that is. So I went and had some business cards made. And I went to a Project Woman, which is a woman, I can't ever say it right, sorry. They serve women who have been sexually assaulted, physically abused, domestic violence, and made no appointment. Just thought, okay, I gotta do this. I was so excited. And somehow I talked to the director. I don't even know how I got into her office. And I shared with her my story and told her I just wanted to help. I didn't know how, but my job was to help. And when I got home, she called me and said, we're going to the legislature in the city where I live, and I would like you to come with us and share your story. So I did that, and they were able to get an increase in funding for victims of sexual assault.
wow.
So that was like wonderful. And so she asked me, would you mind going with us to this college and sharing your story? And we're going into a couple of high schools, and I'd like you to come with me and share your story. So I just began sharing my story and the process of healing and what that means and what it looks like. And I began to I don't know how it happened. Just it began to grow, and I started going into prisons and juvenile detention centers, just anywhere people would. And it wasn't about getting paid. It was about, I would go for free because I was like, I just want to share what the good. I know there are people who are living in darkness, and I just want to be part of I call it a rescuer.
Yes.
I just want to rescue people like I have been rescued.
Absolutely. I really truly understand your position there, because you experienced quite a ride. You know, you've been on a roller coaster your whole life until that moment. And it's quite ironic that the person who got you to that point that you released was one of the people who hurt you the most. You know, if that hadn't happened, you might have held on to it a little longer. But I just think your story is so fabulous. And the way you've come out the way you are today is, I'm speechless. I could listen to this for hours. I really could. But what I want to ask you to do now is to give me one piece of advice that you would give to one of our listeners who has a similar experience to that which you have gone through. So if they approached you through Transformation Speaks or through any other means, what would you say?
The first thing I would say is, it's not your fault. Um, None of what you've been through is your fault. It is a reflection of the person who caused the pain. It is not a reflection of you. So stop, please stop wearing it. Because oftentimes we wear it as, it almost becomes a, like clothes that we put on and we never take off. I would say it's not your fault. The clothes of victim are not your clothes to wear. The whole fact that you are still here after all that you've been through, you are a survivor. Forgive yourself and forgive that person. I know you don't forgive because you're asked to forgive. You forgive because it cuts the tie between you and the person.
Thank you. That is
So that,
that is powerful. That is very, very powerful, because a lot of people hold on to it so tightly.
yes.
Thank you so much, Marlisse. Where would anyone get hold of you if they want to contact you directly?
Okay. I'm on social media. If you're, first of all, my website is transformationspeaks.com. And there is a page on that website where it will go directly to my email, and I will get back with you. One of the things that have grown out of me speaking is that I do what I call transformative coaching. And I really try to help hold people's hands and walk them through the pain from that trauma to that triumph. But and I'm just being honest, I don't charge to do it because I live that transformation. So I just want to give that transformation, and I want to give it away. I don't want to block people because of money. So that's something I did because someone asked me to. I got into it. It grew and grew. And I've never charged anybody, and I never will, because it's not about money. It's about people learning to live and to dance in the sun.
And that shows the heart of the woman. She will not charge, but she will help you through to the point that she's at today, where she's
Yes.
able to talk about the pain, but also talk about the happiness that she found. Marlisse, over to you.
Oh, you can also on Facebook. I have a wall that's called Transformation Speaks, but I also have my personal page. It's called Servant Leader Hardoman, Marlisse Hardoman, and you can contact me that way. And I will never ignore you, never turn you away, because I have been ignored and I have been turned away, and I know how that feels. If you're on Instagram, Transformation Speaks 1, and you can message me there, and I will respond.
Thank you. Last thing now, I need to shine the light on you a little bit and ask you, just for some fun.
Okay.
Sparkling water or still?
Sparkling.
Absolutely. I knew we were sisters the minute we spoke. Chicken or
Definitely
beef?
sparkling. Huh?
Chicken or beef?
I'm vegetarian.
Oh, you're vegetarian.
Yeah.
So what would your favorite vegetarian meal be then?
I believe it or not, I like their vegetarian chicken nuggets.
Why not?
And I can probably eat them all day. I mean, they're so good. So
would you rather go for a run or a walk?
I love runs.
You love going for a run?
I love nature.
Okay.
So, like in the morning, I go out and sit on my deck, and that's how I get my morning started. I just drink a cup of tea and just listen to the birds and look at the trees and just realize how blessed I am.
Absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to leave with our readers before we go?
Just keep growing. Understand that no matter what you face, you can grow through it as long as you're willing to grow.
And there you have it. I told you it would be a really powerful episode, and I hope we've delivered. I know we've delivered. This is Marlisse after all. Thank you, and I will see you next episode. This has been Jacqui and Friends. And there we have it, another empowering episode of Survival Stories. If you heard something today that resonated with you, please reach out at jacquiandfriends.com and download our free PDF. Don't forget to head over to iTunes and leave a 5-star review and rating. And whilst you're online, why not join our community of warriors on Facebook at Survival with Jacqui. Look forward to seeing you there.